The Kronar war beast stood 12 feet tall and weighed over 2 tons of pure muscle and fury. Its 6 arms ended in razor-sharp claws that could slice through titanium like paper. 4 red eyes burned with ancient rage, and its mouth held teeth designed to crush starship hulls. For 3,000 years, this creature had been the ultimate weapon of the Galactic Empire. Commander Vex watched the monster pace in its containment field aboard the flagship Dominion. The beast had never been defeated in combat. Not once. It had torn through entire armies, reduced civilizations to ash, and made whole star systems surrender at the mere mention of its name. The Empire's enemies called it the Deathbringer. The Empire called it victory. "Sir, we're approaching the human colony," reported Lieutenant Krill, his scaled hands dancing across the control panel. "Planet designation, Earth 7. Population approximately 50,000. Vex nodded, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The humans had been a thorn in the Empire's side for months now. They refused to pay tribute, ignored surrender demands, and somehow kept winning battles they should have lost. Their ships were inferior, their technology primitive, yet they fought with a stubbornness that baffled the Empire's greatest military minds. "What's their military strength?" Vex asked. "Minimal, sir. A few patrol ships, some ground defenses. Nothing that should concern us." Krill paused, checking his readings again. "Actually, sir, they're not even trying to evacuate. Their population seems to be staying put." This puzzled Vex. Every civilized species knew about the Kronar. When the Empire brought the beast to a world, smart people ran. The fact that these humans weren't fleeing meant either they were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Vex suspected the latter. The Dominion entered orbit around the green and blue planet below. Earth 7 looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over continents and oceans. Cities dotted the surface like tiny jewels. Soon, most of them would be rubble. "Open a channel to the planet," Vex commanded. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human female with brown hair and worried eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no military decorations. "I am Commander Vex of the Galactic Empire," he announced. "You have 3 hours to surrender unconditionally and begin tribute payments. Failure to comply will result in the deployment of our ultimate weapon. Your resistance ends today." The human woman took a deep breath. "Commander, I'm Governor Sarah Chen of Earth 7. Our answer remains the same as always. We will not surrender, and we will not pay tribute to an empire built on oppression." Vex's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "You clearly don't understand the situation, Governor. We have brought the Kronar war beast. It has conquered every world it has touched. Your primitive weapons cannot harm it. Your soldiers cannot stop it. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Governor Chen's expression hardened. "We've heard of your monster, Commander. But we're not running. This is our home, and we'll defend it." "Foolish," Vex muttered, cutting the transmission. He turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare the drop pod. Send the beast to their largest city. Let's see how brave they are when it starts tearing through their buildings." The tactical officer, an insectoid creature with compound eyes, looked nervous. "Sir, perhaps we should try conventional bombardment first. The beast is difficult to control once released. The Emperor wants these humans to serve as an example." Vex replied coldly. "Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy the Empire. Deploy the Kronar." Vex. Deep in the ship's belly, technicians prepared the massive drop pod. The Kronar paced restlessly inside its chamber, sensing the approaching battle. Its claws scraped against the metal walls, leaving deep gouges. The creature had been bred for war, enhanced with genetic modifications that made it nearly indestructible. Its hide could deflect energy weapons, its bones were harder than steel, and its healing factor could repair almost any wound. "Beast deployment in 30 minutes, announced the ship's computer. Governor Chen stood in the emergency command center beneath New Geneva, Earth 7's capital city. Around her, Military officers and civilian leaders watched the orbital displays with grim determination. "Ma'am, we should at least evacuate the children," urged General Martinez, the colony's defense chief. "Whatever that thing is, our people don't need to see it." Chen shook her head. "If we start evacuating now, panic will spread faster than any monster. Our people chose to stay and fight. We honor that choice." Above them, the drop pod detached from the Dominion and began its fiery descent through the atmosphere. Citizens gathered in the streets, pointing at the burning streak in the sky. Some ran for shelter, but most stood their ground, watching the approaching threat with quiet courage. The pod crashed into the city's central park with tremendous force, creating a crater 50 feet wide. Steam hissed from the impact site as the pod's doors began to open. Emergency sirens wailed across the city, but they seemed almost cheerful compared to the low, rumbling growl that echoed from inside the pod. The Kronar emerged slowly, savoring the moment. Its 6 arms stretched wide, claws gleaming in the afternoon sun. It stood to its full height and released a roar that shattered windows for blocks around. The sound carried raw menace, the promise of death and destruction. Human defense forces had positioned themselves around the park. Soldiers in powered armor aimed plasma rifles at the creature, while hover tanks took strategic positions behind cover. They all knew their weapons would barely scratch the beast, but they would try anyway. The Kronar looked around at the surrounding city with hungry eyes. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, full of prey. Streets bustled with humans who hadn't fled fast enough. The creature's 4 eyes locked onto the nearest group of soldiers and its lips pulled back in a terrible grin. "All units, open fire," General Martinez commanded through the comm system. Plasma bolts and explosive rounds struck the Kronar from every direction. The barrage continued for 30 seconds, filling the air with smoke and energy discharges. When the smoke cleared, the beast stood exactly where it had been, completely unharmed. It hadn't even bothered to move. The Kronar chuckled, a sound like grinding stone. Then it charged. What followed could barely be called a battle. It was a massacre. The beast moved with impossible speed for something so large, covering the distance to the nearest tank in 3 massive bounds. Its claws tore through the vehicle's armor like it was made of cardboard. The tank exploded, sending debris flying in all directions. Soldiers tried to retreat in good order, but the Kronar was everywhere at once. Its 6 arms allowed it to attack multiple targets simultaneously, while its powerful legs carried it across the battlefield faster than the humans could react. Plasma rifles discharged uselessly against its hide while its claws found their marks with surgical precision. In minutes, the entire defense force was either dead or scattered. The Kronar stood among the wreckage, barely breathing hard. Its red eyes surveyed the city beyond the park, calculating which buildings to destroy first. Aboard the Dominion, Commander Vex watched the slaughter with satisfaction. "Excellent. Have our sensors detected any additional military response?" "Negative, sir. The humans appear to be in full retreat. The beast is moving toward the residential district now." Vex settled back in his command chair. Within hours, the Kronar would have torn through the city's heart. The humans would surrender or die, and the Empire would have another colony world to exploit. It was all proceeding exactly according to plan. The beast began its march toward the city center, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. It tore down lampposts for fun, crushed abandoned vehicles under its massive feet, and roared periodically just to hear the echo off the buildings. The creature was enjoying itself immensely. As it rounded a corner onto Main Street, something made it pause. Standing in the middle of the road, perhaps 100 yards ahead, was a small figure. The Kronar's enhanced vision focused on the target and identified it as a human child. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with blonde hair tied in pigtails and wearing a bright red dress. The beast tilted its massive head, curious. Why hadn't this one run? All the other humans had fled screaming when they saw it coming, but this small creature just stood there, looking directly at the Kronar without any sign of fear. The child raised her hand in what looked like a greeting. The Kronar snorted with amusement. Perhaps it would make this one's death particularly creative, as a reward for her unusual bravery. The beast resumed its advance, claws extended and ready to strike. But as it got closer, something strange began to happen. The creature's steps grew slower, more hesitant. Its breathing became labored, and a peculiar sensation spread through its massive body. For the first time in its 3,000 years of existence, the Kronar war beast felt something it had never experienced before. It felt calm. The Kronar stopped 10 feet from the little girl and stared down at her with growing confusion. The strange calmness spreading through its body felt alien. Wrong. For 3 millennia, rage had been its constant companion. Fury drove every breath, every heartbeat, every thought. But now, looking at this small human child, something was shifting inside its mind. The girl smiled up at the massive creature without a trace of fear. "Hello," she said in a clear, sweet voice. "My name is Emma. What's your name?" The beast's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. No one had ever asked its name before. It was called many things: the Kronar, the Deathbringer, the ultimate weapon. But those were titles, not names. Did it even have a name? Somewhere in the depths of its genetically modified brain, ancient memories stirred. Before the Empire, before the experiments, before the rage, there had been something else. But that was so long ago. The creature rumbled, its voice like distant thunder. Speaking felt strange. It usually only roared or growled. Words were for prey, not predators. "I am Kronar." Emma nodded as if this made perfect sense. "That's a good name. Are you lost, Kronar? You look sad." Sad? The concept was incomprehensible. The beast was a weapon of mass destruction. It felt rage, hunger, battle, lust. But sadness? That was an emotion for lesser beings, for the weak creatures it killed. Yet looking into the child's bright blue eyes, something deep inside the Kronar's chest began to ache. Aboard the Dominion, alarm signals began flashing on every console. Commander Vex leaped to his feet, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. "What's happening down there?" he demanded. "Why has the beast stopped moving?" Lieutenant Krill's claws clicked nervously across his instruments. "Sir, the Kronar appears to have encountered a human child. It's been stationary for over 3 minutes." "A child?" Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Impossible. The beast doesn't hesitate. It kills everything in its path." "Scan for enemy weapons or technology near its location." "Negative, sir. I'm only reading one human life sign. A small human female, approximately 7 standard years old. No weapons. No technology beyond primitive clothing." Vex felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. In all the Empire's records, no one had ever made the Kronar pause. The creature was designed to be pure aggression, incapable of mercy or hesitation. What could a human child possibly be doing to affect it? On the street below, Emma took a small step closer to the towering monster. "Are you hungry?" "My mom packed extra sandwiches for lunch. I could share." The Kronar's massive head tilted further. "Hungry?" When was the last time it had felt actual hunger, rather than just the urge to kill? The Empire fed it nutrients through tubes, keeping its body functioning at peak efficiency. But this child was offering to share food, the way creatures did when they cared about each other. "I do not eat sandwiches," the beast rumbled slowly. "Oh," Emma looked thoughtful. "What do you like to eat?" Another impossible question. What did it like? The Kronar had been trained to consume whatever the Empire provided. Its preferences had never mattered. It existed to fight, to kill, to conquer. Likes and dislikes were luxuries it had never been allowed. "I eat what I am given," it finally answered. Emma frowned with the serious concentration only children could manage. "That doesn't sound very fun. Everyone should get to choose their favorite foods. I like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches best, but sometimes I have grilled cheese. Do you ever get to choose?" The word choose hit the Kronar like a physical blow. Choice was another concept it barely understood. For 3,000 years, others had made every decision. The Empire chose where it went, what it killed, When it fought, the beast had no more control over its actions than a sword had over how it was swung. "I do not choose," it said. And for the first time, those words carried a weight of sorrow. Emma stepped closer again, now within reach of the creature's claws. Any other being in the galaxy would have been torn apart by now. But the Kronar found itself pulling its arms back, keeping its weapons away from this small, fragile human. "That's really sad," Emma said with genuine sympathy. "Everyone should get to make choices. Even big guys like you." In the depths of the Kronar's mind, something ancient began to wake up. Buried beneath layers of genetic programming and imperial conditioning, a tiny spark of original consciousness flickered to life. It remembered, just for a moment, what it had been before the Empire found it. Not a weapon, but a living being with thoughts and feelings and, yes, choices of its own. The memory was painful and wonderful at the same time. The beast staggered slightly, overwhelmed by sensations it hadn't felt in millennia. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, reaching up to touch one of the Kronar's massive legs. Her small hand barely covered a fraction of its armored hide, but the contact sent shockwaves through the creature's entire nervous system. Touch. When was the last time someone had touched it without fear or hatred? The Empire's technicians handled it with mechanical tools. Its enemies struck it with weapons meant to cause pain. But this was different. This was gentle, caring, concerned. The Kronar looked down at the tiny hand resting against its leg and felt something break inside its chest. Not break with pain, but break like a dam bursting, releasing emotions that had been locked away for thousands of years. The beast's voice caught, then grew stronger. "I have not been okay for a very long time." Emma nodded as if this explained everything. "Sometimes when I'm not okay, my mom holds me and tells me everything will be better." "Do you have someone who does that for you?" The question was like a knife to the heart. The Kronar had no one. It was alone, always alone, surrounded by handlers and enemies, but never friends, never family, never anyone who cared whether it was okay or not. "No," it whispered, the word barely audible. Without hesitation, Emma wrapped her arms around the creature's massive leg in the best hug she could manage. "Well, you're not alone anymore. I'm your friend now." The Kronar froze, as if struck by lightning. Friend. Another word from the forgotten dictionary of its buried past. The beast's entire body began to tremble, not with rage but with something far more powerful and terrifying. Love. It was feeling love. Commander Vex paced the bridge of the Dominion like a caged animal, his officers watching nervously as their commander's agitation grew more pronounced. "Sir," Lieutenant Krill ventured carefully, "perhaps we should consider alternative measures. The beast appears to have been compromised somehow." "Compromised?" Vex's voice rose to a screech. "By what? A human child with no weapons, no technology, no military training? It's impossible." But even as he said it, Vex knew something was terribly wrong. The Kronar had been the Empire's most reliable weapon for 3,000 years. It never hesitated, never showed mercy, never demonstrated anything resembling emotion. Yet now it stood motionless on a human street, apparently engaged in conversation with a child. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving transmissions from across the colony. The humans are coming out of hiding." "What do you mean, coming out of hiding?" "They're emerging from their shelters and approaching the beast's location. Large crowds are gathering, sir. Men, women, children, elderly humans. They don't appear to be afraid anymore." Vex rushed to the main screen and switched the view to show the area around the park. What he saw defied all logic and military experience. Hundreds of humans were walking calmly down the streets toward where the Kronar stood with the little girl. They weren't running, weren't screaming, weren't showing any of the terror that usually accompanied the beast's presence. "This is wrong," Vex muttered. "This is all wrong. Activate the beast's combat stimulants remotely. Force it back into battle mode. Sir, the Kronar's bio readings are already highly irregular. Its stress hormones have dropped to levels we've never recorded. Its aggression markers are nearly at zero. Introducing combat stimulants now could cause a complete psychological breakdown. Vex's compound eyes fixed on his tactical officer with murderous intensity. I don't care about the beast's psychological state. I care about completing this mission. The Emperor expects results. Yes, sir. The officer replied reluctantly. Beginning to program the stimulant injection sequence. On the street below, Emma felt the Kronars trembling through her small arms wrapped around its leg. She looked up with concern at the massive creature that now seemed more like a scared animal than a monster. Hey, it's okay, she said softly. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. My dad says there's always a solution if you just think hard enough. The beast looked down at her with eyes that were no longer filled with rage, but with confusion and growing awareness. Little human, Emma. I think I have done terrible things, many terrible things. Emma considered this seriously. Well, did you want to do terrible things? Or did someone make you do them? The question struck at the heart of the Kronar's awakening consciousness. Had it chosen to be a weapon of destruction? Or had that choice been taken from it long ago? The memories were clearer now, showing flashes of a time before the genetic modifications, before the mental conditioning, before the Empire had turned it into their perfect killer. I do not remember choosing, it said slowly. I remember only orders. Always orders. Then it wasn't really you doing the terrible things, Emma declared with the absolute certainty that only children possessed. It was whoever was giving the orders. You were just trapped inside, waiting for someone to help you get free. The Kronar's eyes widened as this simple truth hit home. For 3,000 years, it had been a prisoner in its own body, watching helplessly as the Empire used it to commit countless atrocities. But now, for the first time since its capture, it felt the possibility of choice returning, and at that moment, the combat stimulants hit its bloodstream like liquid fire. The Kronar's roar of agony echoed through the city streets as the combat stimulants flooded its system. The chemicals were designed to override conscious thought, to drown emotion in pure aggression. Every muscle in its massive body convulsed as genetic programming warred against newfound awareness. Emma stumbled backward as the creature thrashed in pain. But she didn't run. Instead, she watched with wide eyes as the Kronar fought an internal battle between what it was forced to be and what it was choosing to become. Fight it, she called out, her young voice carrying surprising authority. Don't let them control you anymore. The beast's 4 eyes rolled back as waves of artificial rage crashed against its emerging consciousness. The stimulants were stronger than anything it had experienced before. The Empire was clearly desperate to regain control of their weapon. But for the first time in 3 millennia, the Kronar had something to fight for beyond mere survival. It had a friend. The approaching crowd of humans stopped at a safe distance. Watching the creatures struggle with a mixture of fear and sympathy, Governor Chen pushed through to the front of the group, her face pale but determined. Emma, she called out. Sweetheart, come away from there. Emma looked back at the governor, then at the writhing beast, then made the kind of decision that only the very brave or very innocent could make. She stepped closer to the Kronar. Not farther away. He's not our enemy, she announced to the crowd. He's hurt and scared and someone's trying to make him do bad things, but he doesn't want to. The Kronar heard her voice through the haze of chemical rage and latched onto it like a lifeline. The stimulants demanded violence, commanded it to kill, to destroy, to fulfill its purpose as a weapon. But Emma's words reminded it that it could choose a different path. I will not, the creature gasped between convulsions, be your weapon anymore. Aboard the Dominion, Commander Vex watched his ultimate weapons rebellion with growing panic. The Emperor had entrusted him with this mission. And failure would mean disgrace, exile, possibly death. He couldn't afford to lose control of the situation. Maximum stimulant dosage, he ordered. Flood its system. I don't care if it kills the beast afterward. We need it to complete the mission first. Sir, Lieutenant Krill protested, that dosage would be lethal to most species, even with its enhanced physiology. Do it, Vex screamed, his composure finally cracking. I'd rather have a dead weapon than no weapon at all. The tactical officer's claws hovered over the controls, then stopped. Slowly, he turned to face his commander. No, sir. I won't do it. What did you say? I said no. Krill's voice grew stronger. I've watched this creature suffer for years, sir. Watched it follow orders that went against every natural instinct. If it's finally found the strength to break free, I won't be the one to stop it. Other officers around the bridge began nodding in agreement. The Kronar's struggle was being broadcast across the ship, and many of the crew were seeing their ultimate weapon in a new light. For the first time, they were seeing it not as a monster, but as a fellow being in pain. Mutiny! Vex shrieked. This is mutiny. Guards, arrest these traitors. But the guards didn't move. Even the Empire's most loyal soldiers were having trouble reconciling their orders with what they were witnessing. The beast they had feared and revered was fighting for something more important than conquest or glory. It was fighting for freedom. Down on the planet's surface, the Kronar's struggle was reaching its climax. The artificial rage chemicals were at their peak concentration, demanding total surrender to violence. But the creature's awakened consciousness refused to submit. Every fiber of its being screamed for war. But its heart, a heart it had forgotten it possessed, chose peace. Emma stepped even closer, reaching out her small hand toward the beast's massive head. It's okay, she said softly. I know you're strong enough. Just remember who you really are. The Kronar's eyes focused on the child's face, seeing past the chemical haze to the truth she represented. Here was innocence unmarked by war, kindness untempered by cruelty, trust unbroken by betrayal. In Emma's eyes, the beast saw not what it had been forced to become, but what it could choose to be. I remember, it whispered, the words cutting through the stimulants like a blade. I remember. Before, the memories came flooding back now. Unstoppable. A green world under twin suns. Others of its kind. Living freely in vast forests. A name. Not Kronar, but something else. Something beautiful. It had been called gentle strength among the trees. It had been a guardian. A protector of the young and weak, until the Empire came. The beast, no, gentle strength, looked down at the small human child and made its choice. With tremendous effort, it forced its massive body to stillness. The stimulant still raged through its bloodstream, demanding violence, but will proved stronger than chemistry. I will not hurt you, it said clearly. I will not hurt anyone. Not anymore. Emma smiled and patted the creature's snout. I knew you were good inside. Sometimes good people just need someone to believe in them. The crowd of humans pressed closer. No longer afraid. Children emerged from behind their parents to stare in wonder at the massive creature that had chosen peace over war. Old men and women wept openly, recognizing the courage it must have taken to break free from so much conditioning. Governor Chen stepped forward, looking up at gentle strength with respect and gratitude. What do you want to do now? The creature considered the question carefully. What did it want? For 3,000 years, its wants had been irrelevant. But now, with choice returned to it, what did its heart desire? I want, it said slowly, to protect instead of destroy, to guard instead of conquer, to be the guardian I was meant to be. Then you're welcome here, Chen said simply. If you want to stay, if you want to help defend this world from those who would harm it, you have our invitation. Gentle strength looked around at the faces surrounding it, humans who had every reason to fear and hate it, yet who were offering friendship instead. The irony wasn't lost on the creature. The Empire had sent it to conquer these people, but instead, they had conquered it with something far more powerful than any weapon. Compassion. I would like that very much, it said. Aboard the Dominion, Commander Vex stared at the display in defeat. His ultimate weapon had not only failed to complete its mission, but had actively joined the enemy. The ramifications would echo throughout the Empire. If a creature as thoroughly conditioned as the Kronar could break free from Imperial control, what did that say about the Empire's other weapons? Its other soldiers? Its other slaves? Sir, Lieutenant Krill reported quietly. We're receiving communications from across the fleet. Ship after ship is requesting permission to stand down from the attack. Vex looked around the bridge at his own crew, seeing doubt and rebellion in every face. The Kronar's transformation was inspiring more than just itself. It was awakening something in everyone who witnessed it. Hope, sir. The communications officer added. The planetary governor is requesting to speak with you directly. With nothing left to lose, Vex accepted the transmission. Governor Chen's face appeared on the main screen, but she wasn't alone. Emma stood beside her, and behind them both loomed the massive form of gentle strength. Commander Vex, Chen said formally, I think it's time we had a proper conversation. Your weapon has chosen to join us in defending this world. The question now is whether you and your crew would like to make the same choice. Impossible, Vex whispered. The Empire would never. The Empire, interrupted Emma, doesn't get to decide for you any more than it got to decide for my friend here. You can choose to be free, just like he did. Vex looked at the small human child who had somehow accomplished what 3,000 years of warfare could not. She had taken the Empire's ultimate weapon and turned it into their greatest nightmare, a symbol of hope and freedom. What are you offering? He asked quietly. Sanctuary, Chen replied. For anyone who wants to leave the Empire behind and start over. We won't pretend it will be easy, but it will be honest. And it will be your choice. Around the bridge, officers began looking at each other with new understanding. The Empire demanded absolute obedience, punished independent thought, treated its servants as tools rather than beings. But here was an alternative, a chance to choose their own path. Lieutenant Krill was the first to speak. Sir, I formally request asylum on the human colony. Other voices quickly joined his. Within minutes, most of the bridge crew had made the same request. The rebellion that had started with a child's kindness was spreading throughout the Imperial fleet. Vex looked around at his former subordinates, beings who had found the courage to choose freedom over fear. Slowly, he too made his decision. Governor Chen, he said with dignity, I formally surrender this fleet to your custody and request political asylum for myself and any crew members who wish it. Emma clapped her hands with delight. See? I told you there was always a solution if you thought hard enough. Down on the planet's surface, gentle strength lifted its massive head to look up at the stars where Imperial ships were standing down from battle positions. The creature that had once been the Empire's greatest weapon was now the spark that lit their greatest defeat. But it wasn't really a defeat at all. It was a liberation. As the sun set over New Geneva, casting long shadows across the city, a little girl named Emma sat on the shoulder of a 12-foot-tall former war machine, sharing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and talking about all the wonderful choices they could make tomorrow. And across the galaxy, the word spread that the Empire's greatest weapon had been conquered, not by force or technology, but by a single word spoken by a human child. The word was friendship. But the word that mattered even more was the one that came after. Choose.